Hello, everyone, and welcome in to the Crowded Booth. College football week 4. It's a loaded slate, and we can't wait to talk with you about these games. I mean, SEC, Pac-12, ACC, Big Ten. There's movement all around. It's Separation Saturday, hence the title. Going to be a lot of fun to preview these games. Will Mannis and Ralph Leary will be here in a second on tonight's episode of the Crowded Booth.
Pile in here and make yourself feel at home. The Crowded Booth is coming on. The Crowded Booth with Bryce Koon.
Happy Wednesday, everyone. Ralph Leary and Will Mannis alongside me as we get ready for tonight's show. Fantastic week 4. We have, honestly, guys, I don't want to say the week 3 was a letdown by any means, but there were still some really, really good games. But this weekend has the potential to be one of the best weekends of college football that you're probably going to get all season. So many ranked matchups, across the board, too. We're going to talk about it. I mean, pack about it. But, Pac-10 – Yeah, I said that. Pac-10 or Pac-12, ACC, all of these are going to be a lot of fun to really kind of preview and look at. So it's going to be a ton of fun, and we're going to talk about it. Let's lock into this first topic, though. If you're watching already, make sure to like the video, make sure to subscribe. The Pac-12 needs a leader, guys. Ralph, you have seen this. Will, you were really kind of we talked about the Pac-12. I think all three of us had kind of a different winner coming out of this conference. Now you kind of have to enter Colorado into this conversation as a potential contender. They've got a big game against Oregon, Washington State, or not. That's it. It's up to each person's discretion. Altogether, though, man, I mean, you got Colorado, Oregon this week. You've got, Washington is got to, host a good opponent. Oregon State's got a big game. UCLA. I mean, all of these teams are going to enter the portion of their schedule where I kind of feel like you're going to get into a spot where the Pac-12 is going to eat itself up. Like I don't see an undefeated team or a top team coming out. I know, Will, you're really high on Oregon coming into the season, so we'll start with you on this, Will. They need a leader. When you look at all of these games, who's kind of a team that you feel like is still, I don't want to say the prize jewel, but kind of the leader so far here in the Pac-12?
Yeah, I still think it's the Oregon Ducks. I mean, you knew what they had coming in. They had a really good defense, probably the best defense, if not the best, the second best defense in the Pac-12. And they've got a quarterback that's played a ton of games, a ton of experience in Bo Nix, my Heisman pick this year. And you look what they've done, who they played this year. Portland State, they did what they were supposed to do, but they still hung 70. That's impressive. Then they go on the road. They get a win against Texas Tech in a tighter game than I think a lot of people thought. But a road win nonetheless against a pretty solid team. And now they have Colorado this weekend. They're a big favorite, and I think that they're going to really start to separate themselves in that Pac-12 race.
Yeah, Pac-12 race is going to be interesting. I mean, especially with Florida State and the ACC, the SEC not looking too dominant. You could really still – it feels like, have one team per conference. Make the playoff at the end of the year. Ralph, for you, when you look at this, very, very interesting. You got Colorado, like we talked about. You got Oregon playing against each other. As I kind of look at this slate of games, once again, fantastic slate. Oregon State, Washington State, going to be a fun one. UCLA goes on the road to Utah. I still kind of like Utah in this sense, but I know you mentioned to me earlier, I'll put you on the spot. I don't know if it's your team. Washington, Michael Penix Jr. he's got that dog in him, and he just continues to kind of sling it all over the yard.
He's not the only QB that's got that dog in him.
He's not. I mean, look, I agree with Will, though, about Oregon this year. Oregon looks really good this year. I think Bo Nix has really found himself. Dan Lanning's definitely, got that defense going on this year. They look a lot, cleaned up and everything. And Colorado is a fun team to watch. I mean, look, it's an exciting, fun season for all Colorado fans and Dion and everything, but they're not going to compete against some of these Oregons and Utah and USC. And we know what USC is capable of. Their offense is electric. Caleb Williams is the best player in college football. Their defense is going to lose them a lot of games. I mean, this is what's going to happen to them. They're going to, have to outscore everybody, and it's just not going to be good for them later on the run. I like Washington. He's looked really good so far. Michael Penix Jr. is just, I mean, he's electric. It's fun to watch. He really is, and you see what he can do, with the ball in his hands. And this offense is good. We haven't really seen him play anyone good yet, though. And that's my
Yeah.
thing is, later on in the season when you get to face the better defenses in the Pac-12, are you able to keep that same momentum with the offense, or are you going to have to, change your offense up or make some different plays? So, this conference is really up in the air.
Yeah.
But I'm with Will though. I like Oregon right now.
Yeah, and when I look ahead at Washington's schedule, obviously this weekend they're playing Cal. They dismantled a Michigan State program that is, already
Upside down.
dismantled upside down to begin with. But their last 4 games, guys, like that's when you're going to learn about Washington. At USC starting on November the 4th, at home against Utah, they go on the road to Corvallis against Oregon State, and then they host Washington State to end of the year, the Apple Cup. So, all of these things that you're going to have, I agree with you. I think you're going to learn a lot more about that team. Early in the year, I was still leaning USC. I think that Caleb Williams is that good. I can't wait for USC and Oregon to face off. Like, I just think that's going to be a really, really fun game to watch. And then Washington gets Oregon here in a couple weeks in the middle of October, which is going to be a lot of fun to watch as well. But altogether, Pac-12 needs a leader. Now, look, we're not a Pac-12 show, but we had to mention, obviously, what they're going. Let's kind of roll into some more regional games, and we get one that a large portion of our Georgia Tech fan base, I think, is going to want to keep an eye on for supremacy of the ACC. Look, I saw Florida State in person, guys, in week 1. This is a playoff caliber team when they're playing up to their standard. Now, here's the question. We all remember, and I don't want to compare them to Georgia of last year, but we all remember when Georgia went on the road to Missouri and just had this ugly, ugly game. They ended up pulling out the win. When you look at what Florida State had to do against Boston College, maybe that was their game. That 11 a.m. kickoff, just not great weather up there. Boston College was amped up. They were honoring some folks.
Red bandana
Who
game.
knows?
That's
Yeah,
a big game
red.
in Boston
It's a
College
big
every
game.
year.
A lot of emotions, going with what they had going on. So I'll ask you, Will, Florida State's still legit? Or are you concerned as they go into Death Valley, the fake Death Valley? I'll add that. As they go into the fake Death Valley this weekend, because we'll talk about Clemson, but how do you feel about Florida State coming off that tough win, weird win against Boston College?
Yeah, I still like Florida State. They're for real. You can't take away what they've got on both sides of the ball, the talent, the depth. They've got NFL players at just about every position. And they feel like a team that's really in sync, a team that's really come together in those tough road wins when you don't play very well and you go up a team that's really fired up. That's when teams really come together. Like you said, at Georgia at Missouri last year, they kind of turned a corner. And I think Florida State's going to do the same thing. And honestly, they were probably, at least the players were, peeking ahead at Clemson because they know how big of a game it is, just what it means. Even though Clemson's probably down from where they used to be, it's still a huge game.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, you look at Florida State, there's such veteran talent. The wide receivers, I don't know if anyone's going to be able to really match up with what they have. Give credit to Boston College. Like, Boston College used a lot more than just emotions to really almost win that football game. Mike Norvell, you could see, I was watching the game, you could see the stress level of Mike Norvell on the sideline as that game progressed, knowing, oh my gosh, we cannot lose this game. Like, this can't happen.
Ralph, every national championship winning team has a game like that. Think all the way back 2010 with Auburn. They went on the road to Kentucky and won 17-14 with Cam Newton as your quarterback. So there's weird games on every schedule, every team's schedule. We joke about another show that's going on at the same time and him being kind of controversial, but he put it great on his Sunday show. You get 12 games, you get 12 different versions of every team every year. So that was a version of Boston College and Florida State, and we're going to see another version of Florida State this weekend.
Yeah, and I think to that point, when you talk about the 12 different versions, the team that's able to put together a consistently great version is your national champion. Like, how many times you can do that in a row is going to be something that you kind of have to see going forward. So, Ralph, when I look at this Clemson team, offensively, they don't have the weapons. Like Duke, I'm going to say this, Duke straight punked them in week 1. Duke said, we know that you don't have the athletes on the outside to really beat us. We can sit here and talk about, we talked about after week 1 in that recap, credit to Duke. Duke's a solid program, but Clemson's just not Clemson of old. I think, as Will said, Florida State is viewing, say, hey, they're still the cream of the crop when it comes to, the ACC, and until you beat them, you got to knock them down. They haven't beaten Clemson since 2014, a game that Jameis Winston didn't start because he was a part of the suspension the whole, what do we want to call it, crab gate or whatever you want to call it, crab leg gate or whatever it was. That being said, Ralph, how much confidence do you have about Clemson rolling into this one?
Well, I wrote some notes down. I talked about how Riley Leonard in week 1 ran all over you. Now, they didn't play the greatest game ever. Duke didn't really. They didn't play great. They did enough to stop to beat Clemson. Stop them defensively, and to make sure they were on the field for a long time. I think Florida State does that very well. Keep on the field the most of the game. Keep the ball out of Clemson's hands. Make them sweat out their defense and tire them out early. And I wrote down here, and I have written down from the Oregon for Oregon earlier. And Will said earlier, this is Bo Nix's Heisman game. This is the game that solidifies his Heisman if he wins it. This is my Jordan Travis one. If he has a chance to win Heisman, this is the one I look back and said, this guy balled out this game. This is the game you need to be able to do it all. You're gonna make the passes with your great receivers with Keon Coleman and Johnny Wilson. Can you use your feet to hurt them? Can you make this game last longer because you scramble for a first down? I don't think Clemson's defense can stop FSU, honestly. I think they're a great defense. They're talented, but they can't stop mobile quarterbacks. So, in my opinion, this goes for FSU. I'm going to go ahead and spoil it. This is my best bet.
Ooh. He's 3-0.
He's
No, 3-0, and he's staking his claim.
No, I'm not 3-0. I lost last week.
Are you 2-1? You're
right.
2-1.
Yeah.
You're 2-1.
I lost. I took the Kansas State -5.
That's right.
That hurt.
That's right.
I texted y'all, so there goes my streak. But look, I'll say it later on. But I took the FSU -2.5.
Yeah, and look, I think, Florida State's a really, really good football team. I agree with you in the sense, Ralph, that I don't know if Clemson's defense can get off the field enough to give the offense a chance. I think where Clemson is best right now is where you can keep the ball on with the offense and you can run the ball and wear guys down with Will Shipley. Going back to Florida State's defense in this sense, it's a veteran, front seven. They held LSU in check completely. There was no semblance of a run game for LSU. It really depended on a mobile quarterback in the sense. Cade Klubnik, while I think that he still has the potential to be really good, I just don't know if he's, you mentioned Jordan Travis. If Clemson wins this football game and Cade Klubnik's the guy, he announces himself as one of the better quarterbacks in the country against a really talented Florida State team.
It's a great point.
I know you were going to say something.
If Clemson wins this game, they're going to have to do it with the arm of Cade Klubnik. I don't know how they run against that Florida State front seven. But, Ralph kind of spoke to the talent. Clemson's just as talented. They may not be as deep as Florida State, but a lot of positions, they've got talent. So they could very well win this game. And that's a big reason why they're a 3-point underdog at home. I mean, it's going to be close. And, everybody talks about Dabo. He's kind of corny guy, but I think he can get that locker room up. This is going to be a really, really tight game. If he can get them up and get them going, I know it's a noon kick, which is an advantage for Florida State, but I think Clemson and their fans, they're going to get up. They're going to be loud. They kind of smell blood in the water after Florida State, kind of limped out of Boston College with that win last week. So it's going to be fun. This noon window this weekend is going to be fun.
Oh, it's going to be a ton of fun. I can't wait to watch that. I'm going to have that on one screen. We're going to get to in a second here, Auburn and A&M on the other that I know we'll all be keeping an eye on. One more thing on this Florida State Clemson game. We've mentioned, if Clemson's going to win this, it's going to be on the arm talent of Klubnik. Will Shipley's going to get his. I think that he's going to be who he is. They've got to have somebody on the outside establish themselves. Whether it's Bo Collins that can be a guy that, kind of takes that step. They've got to find some type of weapon because I think that there is a severe lack of talent that has been developed. And even some of the guys that you have hit on, or you were able to, I want to say you were able to pull out of the recruiting classes, because none out of the portal, let me say that, out of recruiting classes, you've missed on. And look, what's the name's escaping me, but they for a couple of years were just pulling kids out of Central Phoenix City. One of those, I can't remember which one it was. Obviously, Justin Ross had just a horrific end to his college career. But I remember one of those guys just kind of has never really panned out, I think, what they thought out of kind of what was becoming a wide receiver factory over there in Phoenix City, Alabama. So all those things to say, I don't think Clemson has the skill talent on the outside to really do some of those things. Ralph, did you have the name of that guy?
Is it E.J. Williams?
You think you'll get a chance?
E.J. Williams, yeah. E.J. Williams just being one of those guys, and Ralph's doing it live. He's got a live in studio audience behind him, and that's okay, Ralph. We welcome it. We welcome it. But overall, Will, I did get your pick. What's your official pick in this game? How are you leaning?
Oh, I think I like Florida State. I almost took Clemson. I like Florida State.
Look, Will, I was the one who went against everybody when it was the Alabama Texas game. I said I'm going to Texas, and it panned out. So if you want to do it, it's worked for me. But
no. I'm going to go Florida State. I think the way Florida State matches up with Clemson, we know Clemson's strength is running the football offensively because you talk about it. They don't have the receiver talent.
Yeah,
but Florida State's front seven is so good, and their secondary is so good, and we know how good Keon Coleman is, and Jordan Travis can do it all, run it, throw it, whatever. I think Florida State's just too much, and I think last week was a wake-up call, or maybe they were peeking ahead at Clemson, whatever. I think I think Florida State's had this game circled on their schedule.
Yeah, I agree with you.
I want to make one more comment, and I'm sorry to interrupt there.
You're forgiven.
I appreciate it. Florida State really did not play a bad game against Boston College. Like, I know we're saying it was like a hiccup game for them. You go back and look, they didn't play bad. Then they had 3 fumbles or 2 fumbles that they lost. But like Jordan Travis played great. They ran the ball really well. They played great. They didn't like turn it over a lot. That was like, oh, that's a bad play. Like if you go back and look at Joe Milton's interception against Florida, that's horrible. Jordan Travis didn't play a bad game. You just got Boston College on their best day of the year. Yeah. On a day that they. This is their special game. This is the one they want to play the hardest for. Now, I'm not saying they're not going to play hard for every game of the season, but this one means more to them. So Florida State hooked up a little bit, but like they also said, okay, this team's playing out of their mind right now.
Yeah, Boston College did their quarterback was playing outstanding. Like I think it's an important point. Give Boston College its due. And Ralph, are you trying to say that Boston College is not going to give their best effort against Georgia Tech later on in the season? That's going to be, just a.
They don't have to.
That's going to be a battle.
They'll probably beat them anyway.
Hey, calm down there. We gotta. Hey, calm down over there. Let's just watch it. Hey, but in all seriousness,
I thought this was a family show. You're going to flash that up there.
Family friendly show. Florida State. I got Florida State. I think we're all across the board taking the Noles to win this one. Just from what the eye test, you can get into the analytics, the advanced stats. The eye test for me, I agree with you, Will. I think what Clemson wants to do, and honestly what they can do, it's just not a good matchup for them. Maybe they prove us wrong. Maybe Clemson kind of continues their ACC supremacy, but I do have the Noles all across the board.
We've seen get up for big games. We've seen it. Yeah. Dabo can lift that locker room. Their fans get into it. That's great. They get it loud there, even though it's going to be a noon kick. But Florida State,
Florida State's good. They're really, really good. Let's roll to the next game here. And it will be a little bit of an extended show tonight, but it's just because the slate is just so beautiful. This one, although not massive implications, it does obviously touch close to home.
What do you mean not massive? We got an undefeated team in this game.
I will say this. This actually is, and you're right, this is big for getting started in the SEC West. Because if you're first off, if you're Texas A&M, this is going to sound crazy to just, viewers and people that listen after the fact, and we thank you for that, but this is going to sound crazy. There were Texas A&M fans that came into the season thinking we can go to the playoff. You lose this one, you're done. You know what I mean? So this is a very big game for Texas A&M. Will, I was listening to some sports radio down here in the Red Stick in the Baton Rouge area, and they were talking about formidable opponents for LSU going forward. And they mentioned, obviously, Auburn. I didn't really realize this, but Auburn is about to enter a stretch of 4 straight games. This might be your best shot to get a win. Like in all truth. I mean, yes. This really might be. So wanted to go to you on this. How important is this game for the fan base, you think? And then just overall with Hugh Freeze needing to really get this offensive identity moving against a good opponent.
Yeah, so I'll talk about Auburn, but I want to note this game is just as important for Texas A&M because that is a program that is smoldering. You can see the smoke all the way from Columbus, Georgia, coming from College Station in that program. You've got some toxic personalities: Jimbo Fisher, DJ Durkin, Bobby Petrino. Toxic to Auburn fans: Damian Craig, former Auburn quarterback's receiver coach over there. They've already lost to Miami, but they know that they can still win the SEC. So this is just as big a game for them. If they lose this game, it could be chaos. It could be downward spiral. you're looking at another below 500 season for Jimbo over there, and Jimbo
Mhm.
might be packing his bags as even though they're going to pay him all that money. But this is a huge game for them as well. But for Auburn, want to touch a little bit on that Sanford game. I like that Auburn aired it out. They've got to figure out this passing game. They got to figure out who your big targets on the outside are. You got to figure out, what Peyton Thorne's going to give you in the pass game. He showed you a lot in the run game, and Sanford committed to shutting down the run, shutting down Auburn's running backs. But Thorne showed you something in the run game. That's another wrinkle that Freeze can add to this offense. Auburn is still kind of figuring out who they are. I said about Florida State, you go on the road and get a win, you learn a lot about your team. Auburn's got a big road win already, taking out Cal in a tight game, but we still don't know a lot. You get in the SEC, road wins are hard to come by in the SEC. This would be huge for Hugh Freeze and his program to go to College Station and get a win. In this series, it's been a weird series since Texas A&M joined the SEC in 2013. The first 6 games, the road team won them all, and then Auburn rattled off 3 in a row, and it's going to back and forth. Auburn obviously got the win last year, but you got to throw that game out for both of these programs. I mean, these two teams are totally different from last year.
Yeah.
It's going to be tough. I've kind of been negative on Auburn the whole time, but close we get to the game, the line is 7.5. That makes me feel good about Auburn. That makes me feel really good about Auburn.
Somebody knows something. I mean, that's what I would say.
Somebody knows something.
Making these lines knows something.
You look at both these teams on paper, what they've shown so far. You look at how they've recruited the last 5 years. It should be Texas A&M by 3-4 touchdowns. Honestly, if you just go by the paper, somebody knows something. This is also a big recruiting game for both of these teams. You talk about, lost train of thought. There's a 5-star wide receiver Auburn's trying to get that's committed to Texas A&M.
Cam Coleman.
Cam Coleman. I almost said Keon because we're just talking about Florida State. Cam Coleman, Central Phoenix City. Wide receiver factory. That would be a huge pickup for Auburn. If Auburn can go in there and pull that upset, really like Auburn to flip Cam Coleman. So there's a lot riding on this game for both programs.
And I think, too, when you mentioned that, like the commitment aspect of it, I mean, look, these games, when guys are in attendance, and let's don't get it wrong, they schedule against SEC or interconference opponents, it's a chance to not only make you look good, but your opponent look bad. So if A&M can't distribute the ball very well, like if Connor Wegman is not able to, get the ball to some playmakers. I mean, Evan Stewart's a playmaker that Texas A&M has. He just really hasn't been the guy quite yet, and still early in his career, obviously. But if Auburn comes out and does it with, and I want to be careful how I say it, underwhelming wide receiver talent. Like these are not highly sought after guys. I mean, you got some nice weapons, but we're not talking about the elite of the elite essentially in the wide receiver room. If Cam Coleman's able to see, hey, look, Auburn, did this with so and so, and now the pitch is Freeze can say, look, we did this with guys that we weren't even a part of this program 8-9 months ago. Think of what we can do with you and your talent. I think that plays a lot into this. But getting back to the game, Ralph. A&M goes to Miami. I didn't sit in the category of thinking they played terrible. I think Miami just clicked, like offensively, and they just were hard to slow down. But, man, Texas A&M's got to get off to a quick start. Like, it feels like that. The Yell rally, the weirdest thing, the cult that they're going to have the night before is just going to be absolutely bizarre. Ralph, I mean, take it away. How do you feel about the Aggies? Will gave the Auburn perspective, but the Aggies here coming into this one, they're going to need to get off to a quick start, it feels like.
Yeah, I think this is a big game for Connor Wegman, honestly. He's looked great this year. I thought he looked great in Miami. He had those 2 interceptions, but, overall this year he's looked really cleaned up. It looks like, him and his offense has been really clicking on all cylinders. Evan Stewart is their number 1 receiver. He's got Moose Muhammad, who really hasn't done much this year, and Nia Smith, who's a number 2 receiver, honestly. But this offense still has a lot of capabilities of being a high-scoring offense to go out there and blow some teams out. Now, they've had some hiccups in the past, and obviously we joked about them last year a lot, how they just fell off the face of the earth. Yeah. And, I mean, look, A&M at home, it's a 12 o'clock kickoff. It's always shaky at home when you're at 12 o'clock, no matter who you are. We saw Georgia last week. Mm-hmm. Auburn just, I mean, look, and this is my only thing. I have one comment about Auburn. Just establish the run early. Establish it and limit those turnovers with a run game, and you may have a chance to pull this out. A&M's just got to stop that run. They have to. I mean, I'm a debate my own comment. So this is this thing. If you could stop Auburn from running the ball, you're gonna make this very hard for them to win because you're gonna make Peyton Thorne throw the ball, and we really hadn't seen greatness out of that yet. So, get them throwing early, don't let them run, and it's just cause those turnovers because Auburn seems to let the ball out a lot. So,
I think too with that, I mean, it's often overplayed, but this really comes down to a battle in the trenches. Like if Auburn gets the run game going, you kind of alluded to Peyton Thorne being in that category. I mean, I'll guarantee you, it feels like they're going to have to utilize Robbie Ashford at some point. And I'll let you talk about like how much
play a big role in this game.
Yeah, what kind of role does he have to play in this game?
I think Robbie Ashford plays a big role, and it's going to be with his legs. Auburn kind of flashed something against Samford. They let him throw a touchdown pass, 38-yard touchdown pass. And it was late, fourth quarter, helped Auburn pull away. But they showed that they trust him to throw the ball and throw it down the field. So, that just puts an idea in Texas A&M's defense's mind. But the way that Robbie Ashford can run the ball, he's a really physical runner, one of the most physical runners I've ever seen at the quarterback position. And he's fast too. So Auburn's got to find a way to get in space. They can do that with Robbie, do that with Jarquez Hunter. They can do it with Damari Austin, more so Austin than Jarquez Hunter. But another name to watch for in this Auburn run game, true freshman Jeremiah Cobb. He has looked electric with the ball in his hands. I'm really interested to see how much of a role he plays in this game.
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting. And going back to what I started this segment off on, the next 4 games, I should have hesitated. I think Auburn's going to have a good shot to beat Mississippi State. They're not very good at all, at that last game. But that's October 28th.
That's the 5th game.
That's the 5th game. Yeah, 5th game. Apologies. A&M, Georgia, LSU, Ole Miss. Yeah, and then you get a little bit of a reprieve. I mean, it's well known that Auburn's schedule is just year in, year out, just a gauntlet. But yeah, let's take a trip to Tuscaloosa. Go ahead.
Can I do a plug? I want to do a full preview. I want to do a full preview of this game tomorrow.
Oh, all right. Full preview of the Auburn Aggies game?
Auburn, Texas A&M.
Oh, okay, gotcha. All right, full preview, full preview. We'll go ahead and plug.
We hadn't talked about that yet.
We hadn't talked about that, but we're going to do it. So it sounds great. Let's roll with the next one here. And Ralph, I just went ahead and hit it. Apologies there. Took Ralph's job away. Will Ole Miss upset Bama in Tuscaloosa, ladies and gentlemen? Alabama's favored. I've got a theory, and I don't want to say a Nick Saban loyalist. It's just it's going to take the wheels falling all the way off for me to not believe in him. Guys, I think this is what I kind of think happened. And just kind of reading some of the tea leaves and reading some things on this, I think that Saban used this USF game to really figure out what he had at quarterback. Because you could use this game and probably get away from it or get away with it, knowing that you could probably still win. Now, listen, they barely still won this game. But if you're playing an SEC opponent and they played like they did last Saturday, I don't think they win. Like, I think outside of maybe Vanderbilt or Mississippi State, you're not winning that football game. That being said, I think that Saban has an idea. I think that Milroe is still very much in the conversation, in the hunt for this quarterback job. And Ralph mentioned this on Monday. I'm not completely convinced that Milroe's not the guy. Like, that needs to be the quarterback because of at least you can just line up and play power football. Now, the offensive line's got to play a lot better. But we'll go with you on this. I mean, your thoughts on the Alabama situation. Obviously, Ole Miss comes in, beat Tech this weekend, but Jackson Dart really looks like he's coming into his own.
Yeah, you said it, talking about the Auburn, Texas A&M game, with Alabama being favored. Somebody knows something because Alabama looked awful. They didn't look good against Texas. They're going back to Milroe, which is just, we've never seen this from Nick Saban before. I mean, we saw it with Jalen Hurts and Tua, but everybody knew how good they were. And we know the talent Ole Miss has. If Quinshon Judkins is 100% and ready to go for Ole Miss, I really like Ole Miss in this game. The way that Ole Miss can run the ball, but they got to have almost said Jarquez Hunter, Quinshon Judkins, because he's elite. He's elite. He's going to be a starting running back in the NFL. And Jackson Dart provides a great complement for that offense. He really spreads it around. and having Judkins, takes a lot of pressure off of him.
Yeah.
To make the big time throws every time. They don't need it. They can just run it. I was looking at how these two teams match up numbers wise, and I was really surprised to see how lowly ranked Alabama's defense was. their defense is kind of in flux. You know, Lane Kiffin said it after the Georgia Tech game. It looked like Travaris Robinson was calling against South Florida, not the defensive coordinator Kevin Steele. So whose defense is it? Is it Travaris Robinson's? Is it Kevin Steele's? There's just a lot of upheaval in Tuscaloosa right now. So if you want to, this is the time to get Alabama if you're gonna get them. So Ole Miss, I think, is catching them at a good time.
Yeah, our intern, Dr. Bob there, Bama wins. Ole Miss struggled to run the ball in Tulane and cannot be one-dimensional going into this game. I do agree. I agree with that. You can't be one-dimensional. This is where I sit with it. And Ralph, I wanted to get your thoughts on this. Like Alabama, you mentioned it's Roydell Williams, I believe is his name, had a good game. He looked good running the football. They've got to establish this run, though. Like they've got to be able to run the football to be able to do anything. Because I think if you get into a situation where the run game's not working for you, guys, I don't know how much. I mean, I think it could get ugly. Like, I just don't trust any of these quarterbacks to be able to sit back and throw the ball 30. I think I'll say this, and Ralph, I'll go to you for your prediction after this. I think if the quarterback for Alabama, whoever it might be, has to throw over 30 times, Alabama loses. Like, that's just I think that you're going to have to sit where he is playing point guard and he is just kind of managing this offense, and not a game manager like Mac Jones was, a true game manager in the sense of like he's just dinking and dunking and maybe taking that vertical route if Ole Miss gives it to him. Other than that, I'm with you, Will. I think Ole Miss wins this game. Partially, I want them to because I want College Game Day to come to Oxford next weekend for the night game that's going to be a ton of fun between LSU and Ole Miss. That being said, we've got Ole Miss. Ralph, you got the Tide? Is that who you're rolling with?
Like a
I like how you did that earlier. No, I probably will not be rolling with the Tide. I'm on the Ole Miss train. I think I have been since the beginning of the year. Look, I go back to this Texas game. The last time Alabama played a really good defense. Jace McClendon got the second most carries on the team. He had 12 carries for 45 yards. Roydell Williams, who looked like the best back in the country last week, had 6 carries for 12 yards. Why is he only getting 6 carries? I don't know. You go back, you talk about if whoever the Alabama quarterback is has to be just a game manager. And you go back to, I think of like Jake Coker, who wasn't the greatest quarterback.
Blake Sims.
Blake Sims was my next one because Blake Sims could beat you with his legs. Milroe can do the same thing. He doesn't have to make the deep ball throws. Just beat him with his legs. Make the short passes, and you let your athletes make plays. Establish that run game early for Alabama. Ole Miss's defense is always shaky, in my opinion. Yeah. Every year, they have a few good games where they show out, and I feel like against Alabama they just don't show out. They had the high scoring game in 2020 when it was Kiffin's first year. 21 they go to Bryant Denny and they looked terrible. Last year they got at home, still looked terrible against Bryce Young. So this year it's just like, can Ole Miss's defense show up? I believe it can. I actually do. I think this defense can actually make some plays, get Milroe, a little uncomfortable in the pocket, make him run, make him beat you with his legs. Because you got guys who can catch him, who can make plays and tackle in the open field. Let them do that. Let them do it. Because if Alabama's throwing the ball all day, you're going to win this game easily.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I think that, once again, kind of that 30 pass mark for me, the pass attempts, is going to be something that if they hit that or they go over that, it means that the run game's not working. Like, I think this is going to have to be a run-heavy attack for Alabama. Going back to Ole Miss's defense, and watching the Georgia Tech game, like, I just don't think that Jalen – I just don't think Alabama has a quarterback on the roster right now that can beat you by himself. Look, they had a stupid run of quarterbacks. Like, when we would go back and look at this, it's ridiculous. Obviously, they had Jalen Hurts, Tua, Mac Jones, Bryce Young. Guys, those are all NFL starters. Like, that's what is absolutely nuts when we look at that. Now, you can argue about the caliber of them starting. They're NFL starting quarterbacks. That's what they are. And you have a guy now, I'm not saying nobody on that roster can't be developed. They just don't have it this year. And I feel like when Alabama has struggled over the past 5 to 6 seasons, they've at least had that elite playmaker that has pushed them over the top. It's one of those things why I think Ole Miss wins this game. I think Jackson Dart, and let's just talk about it. This might be the week of the quarterbacks announcing themselves. If Dart goes in and wins this game, he's then done what they wanted him to do. Like, the fan base wanted that second year jump that Matt Corral took in his second year, at Ole Miss. If he does this, he's now taken that leap. And, I was joking about it earlier. You really set up, gosh, I mean, I've said this. If Ole Miss wins this game and they knock off LSU, you are in the driver's seat, like in the SEC West. You control your own destiny. You've really probably beat the two hardest teams in your schedule. Unless something gets crazy, the Egg Bowl always does. But unless something gets crazy, towards the end of the season, you got to feel like they're going to be favored everyone else they play the rest of the year. I think this offense is that good. Like I think it's that good, and they can do some damage. So I think we all three have Ole Miss. We're kind of chalking it up there, but that's fine.
We're all taking the underdog.
We're all taking the underdog. I like it though. One more game on the docket. We step outside of the SEC, guys. College Game Day going to be here. This is one that is outside of our footprint, but man, the national implications are huge. I want to start it off by saying apologies to the Fighting Irish for me taking Navy plus 20.5 in week 0. But what I will say,
never let it die. Never let the pick die.
Never let the pick die. We're going to make T-shirts. Navy plus 20.5. That's what we're going to make T-shirts of. It's going to be Kelly Green is what it's going to be too. Notre Dame, guys. Sam Hartman opens this offense up. It might be the best quarterback Notre Dame's had in the past decade. Like it really might. Ian Book was very solid, a game manager. You might have to go back to like Brady Quinn. Like and that's just kind of going off the top of my head of a playmaker at the quarterback position. I like what he has done. This roster, Marcus Freeman's got him humming along. Will, we'll go to you once again here. Has Ohio State found the quarterback situation that makes them feel comfortable? We know the playmakers they have and all this different type of stuff, but they beat up on Western Kentucky last week. Is that enough?
They beat up on Indiana. They beat up on Indiana, who's not any good this year.
Yeah. That being said, I mean, do we know enough to really make an educated pick on these two teams? Or are we going to learn so much this weekend?
I think we're going to learn a lot about Ohio State. I think we don't really know anything about them. They really are missing that quarterback. And it's really just somebody, like you said, they can just be comfortable with to spread it out to those playmakers. They got a really good offensive line. They got really good running backs. They got really good wide receivers, elite wide receivers. And we know their defense can be shaky at times. And that's been the case under Ryan Day, and it's still the case this year. I really like Notre Dame in this game. I like them at home. You said it. Sam Hartman is incredible. He's shown the country in the NFL that he's ready for the next level. He's going to be in the NFL next year. Really makes this offense click. It's kind of a new offense. They look to be more open than they were with Tommy Rees. And I think that has a lot to do with Sam Hartman. He can do more than the previous quarterbacks there have. And they're really balanced. They've got really good running backs. I think with Ohio State, with all the question marks at quarterback, I really like Notre Dame. I like them on both sides of the ball. Their defense can get enough stops, I think, for their offense. With Marcus Freeman, Pete makes his appearance. He won't look at the camera. He's camera shy.
That's Dave or David or whatever.
Yes. I forgot about that. But no, I like Notre Dame. It comes down to quarterback play. Sam Hartman's better quarterback than I think anybody Ohio State has. So I'm taking Notre Dame.
Yeah, I like the experience Sam Hartman's played in those big games, the ACC title game a couple of years ago against Pitt. You mentioned the run game. I don't know how to, exactly pronounce his name, but Estime, whatever you want to call him.
I think it's
Estime. He's a good back. 63 carries, 521 yards. He's averaging 8.38 pop. If you tell me 8.3 a pop and you're saying, oh, he's had like 7 carries. No, this guy's got 63 carries against any competition. That's really, really good. You mentioned Hartman, guys. Over 1,000 yards already. 13 tutties, no picks. Hartman's been good. He's been lights out. I will say this. I think that the loser of this game is not necessarily out of the playoff conversation, especially if it's a close one. Notre Dame would have a harder path to get there. I need to go and look at their full schedule. But Ohio State, if they lose this game, still obviously has Michigan and Penn State on their schedule, and then a Big Ten title game, against some feeble opponent they'll pull out of the other side of the division. That being said, Ralph, Notre Dame, Ohio State, how do you like and where do you lean with this?
Well, I was going to go ahead and answer your question for you about the schedule. They still got to play Duke, USC, and Clemson this year. So Notre Dame, if they pull this one out, they have a 2 games they really got to look forward to actually pull it out. I wrote some notes about this game. This is Kyle McCord's first test as a starting quarterback. This is like, okay, you beat up Indiana, you beat up West Kentucky. Okay, here you go. This is real football here. This is who you got to beat. Marvin Harrison to me is the best receiver in college football, hands down. I think there's no debate about that, honestly. Yeah. You said it best. Sam Hartman, he looks great. He's no picks. He looks comfortable in this offense. I think he's, everyone flocks to him as a leader. And then you bring in Estime. He's great running back. This is the only thing I give right here. Notre Dame's at home at night. I like them at home. I like them at home at night. This is a team that can easily upset Ohio State. A lot of people were saying Ohio State is a really good team. I haven't seen it yet. You beat up West Kentucky, but West Kentucky's playing Troy this weekend. I'm sure Troy might lose to them probably. So I don't even know. I mean, if we're going off what Ohio State's played this year, they really haven't played anybody. I mean, at least Notre Dame's played North Carolina State and beat them. So
yeah, true.
I like Notre Dame in this game. I like how they developed this year. I like what they're doing. Their offense is clicking. Their defense looks really good. I got Notre Dame. I think we're all going Notre Dame. I think.
I wanted to add on to what you mentioned about the schedule wise. I mean, Notre Dame plays at Duke next weekend. That's now coming to a potential big game. They're going to go to Louisville. They've got USC that we're going to play host Pitt. They're going to go to Clemson. There's still plenty of opportunities. That being said, I think Notre Dame's that program that I think after the year that Marcus Freeman, especially how they started off losing to Marshall, there was a lot of concerns. But is this the right guy for the job? I got them beating Ohio State, and I think this is like that big signature win, the feather in the cap type of win for Marcus Freeman as a head coach. Personally, I love what he brings to the table in the sense of just being that young guy that relates. I think that I will say this. I think that he is going to bring Notre Dame into a different element than maybe Brian Kelly did. Brian Kelly did a great job at Notre Dame. Let's don't get it wrong. They were, a top 5, 7, 8 program, it felt like every single year. I just think they're going to be able to be really, really good in a different manner under Marcus Freeman. I think it starts on Saturday night. But, Ralph, you mentioned a night game there. I mean, look, we'll have some Georgia fans that watch this. Georgia stole a game there, 6, 7 years ago. But that's an atmosphere. That's one of those the pageantry of college football that's going to be really, really fun to watch there on Saturday night. Let's get into a quick break. When we come back, we will give our best bets. Where Ralph is 2-1. I don't know what I am, and I don't know what Will is, but we'll think about that during the break.
2-1.
2-1. Love it. Hey, you got to check out Rigged and Ready. I'm wearing the shirt here on tonight's show. It's a fishing apparel brand for on and off the water. They've got great gear. Whether you're just a casual like myself or if you're a diehard fisherman, they've got something for both ends of the spectrum. You got to use code CrowdedBooth10 for 10% off your first order or your order in general at riggedandreadyfishing.com. Support the brand. 2 guys in Middle Georgia that do a fantastic job continuing to pursue their passion outside of college fishing. They launched this brand, and we're proud to partner with them as an official sponsor of the Crowded Booth. Let's bring it back here. We get into our best bets. Guys, this is very interesting. And I got to get a Dr. Bob's comment. This is amazing. Part of me is selfishly hoping Notre Dame wins so that I can bring a Martin Luther sign to College Game Day when Notre Dame comes to tournaments. That's a great comment. If you understand it, that's a great comment. But you gotta have that as well. Let's rock and roll here. Let's talk. As Will, I've never seen you shine so bright as you get ready for your best bet here. You're not even moving on our screen. You're not even moving on our screen
right now. I got to get a new computer. I mean, if I touch it, it's like I burn my hand on it. This is not good.
Well, let's just go ahead and get Ralph's out of the way. Ralph, you took Florida State, apologies. Florida State minus 2.5 at Clemson. I know you mentioned it earlier. Kind of walk through what you're thinking right here as Will gets Jesus Christ out of his face because I think he's actually. I think that the golden gates, the gates of pearl, have absolutely just opened up in Will's face. But we'll just keep it rolling.
Yeah, I mean, I touched on that earlier. I think this is the game that Jordan Travis shows up, and he solidifies himself as a Heisman candidate. I like Florida State this year. I have them in my sorry, excuse me. I have Florida State in my Final Four. I think this is the game I looked at and I said, Florida State's got a strong chance. They lost to them last year, which they were on a great win streak at the time, and they go to Clemson or they play at home at Clemson and lose to them. That's got a bad taste in their mouth. The team they should have beaten last year. They get a chance to beat them on a low end year. I like Florida State. I like what they're doing. I like Norvell. This is the year that Florida State just kind of takes control and wins the ACC outright, in my opinion.
Yeah, and that road to the playoff too is going to be something to kind of watch as well. That's a tough one. I mean, Florida State 2.5 point favorites on the road in Death Valley, but Ralph's rolling with it there. Will, it looks like that you did not accept the invitation to go to heaven, so I'll let you continue to talk about Penn State and Iowa. Penn State against the feebility of the offense of Iowa, which I'm sure you're going to talk about.
It's not my time. It's not my time for that. Yeah, Penn State. I think Penn State looks really good. They found a way to pull away against Illinois last week on just, a goofy game. That's kind of turned into a rivalry after that crazy 9 overtime game. And Brett Bielema really plays teams really close. But Penn State found a way. Aller didn't look great on the road, but now going to be back at home. It's whiteout for Penn State this weekend. You talk about Iowa's offense not being great. They're much improved. I think that clause in offensive coordinator Brian Ferentz contract means a lot to him. So he's really coaching for his job over there. But I like Penn State. I like what they got on both sides of the ball. They still run the ball really well. They got great quarterback play. That hasn't changed for them. I think that they're really showing early this year. They're nipping at Ohio State and Michigan's heels to be that number 1 team in the Big Ten.
Yeah, and this has got to be one of those games, right, that they take care of business. If they want to be sitting in the month of October and November with a chance to, look, guys, even honestly, have one loss and still have an outside shot at the playoff. I mean, who knows what's going to happen the rest of the year? They got to win this game. They got to take care of business. Penn State, 2 touchdown favorites. I'm going to roll with mine, and it'll be something I'll be able to here. I don't even know, what we're doing. But let's talk. Let's talk. Can you hear me now? We can hear now.
Yes.
We've just got the shining light of Jesus Christ on Will. Ralph's live in a bar, and I'm just sitting here just hitting
Ralph's
my
at
mic
the corner bar tonight.
Ralph's at the corner bar. Dangerous spot over there on the Discord channel. Dangerous spot to be. Owned by Jonesy himself.
I'm scared of it. I'm scared of the corner bar.
Ralph, can I get a close up here? I'd like to talk. This is my best bet. Arkansas against LSU. Look, 17.5 points is a lot. I said that Navy Notre Dame. Now, this is what I want to say. Arkansas's offensive line is not good. We go back to the game against BYU. They've allowed, Arkansas has, I think it's the second highest pressures out of any SEC team. I think that LSU is going to be able to get after them. That being said, Arkansas on the other side of the football has got a pretty nice defensive front. They only gave up 281 yards to BYU, so it wasn't the defense's fault. I think this game's going to be more low scoring. I do think LSU wins, and my final score prediction was actually 33-21. I think that they're going to be able to move the ball. LSU will. I just don't know if the explosiveness that we saw last week in Mississippi State translate. Like, Ralph said this too, and we talked about it on Monday. Mississippi State has a lot of things they got to work out, like just a ton of things, both offensively and defensive. They kind of, navigate this weird time. I think that Arkansas under Sam Pittman is going to, be fuming after a loss where they probably should have beat BYU last weekend. This is a rivalry game, a battle of the boot. They're going to, step into Death Valley at night, and they're going to play a hard physical game. And I think that LSU is going to continue to try to work through some of the offensive deficiencies that have plagued them. Offensive line didn't play great, even though it was the Jane Daniels Malik Neighbors show. But that being said, guys, 17.5 points is just a lot. Like, that's a lot for me in an interconference game between. I mean, I could be sitting here and maybe I'll be used as a soundbite, about how I doubt them. That's a lot of points at home for me. I don't know. I don't know how I feel about that. Arkansas, I do think they cover.
It's a very interesting game for LSU. Did they turn a corner? Did they fix enough things against Mississippi State? Or, because to me, I don't think they've shown enough to be that big of a favorite against an Arkansas team that I really think is being undervalued right now by Vegas. They were 8-point favorites at home against BYU and lost outright. So I think this is kind of some overcorrection in the betting market.
Yeah, Mr. Singh over there. No way Arkansas is that bad. I don't think they're necessarily great. No, one of the big things, Rocket Sanders not going to play in this game. They're really missing him
That's a
big time.
huge loss.
It's been he hasn't played yet this season. I mean, it's been one of those things that it's just been very, very tough for them. But overall, that's what I'm rolling with. Arkansas plus 17.5. Still think the Tigers win outright. And like you said, Will, you're going to learn a lot next weekend. If Ole Miss beats Bama and LSU beats Arkansas, that is going to be a fun game, night game.
And
in Oxford.
whatever happens in College Station, you're going to learn a lot.
Exactly. I mean, this is why, and this is, as we wrap it up here, I think this is really Separation Saturday. You're going to have a bunch of different Saturdays throughout the year where you learn a lot. This is like, and Ralph mentioned it, we all kind of alluded to it. This is like one of those first big test weeks. Like, all right, I don't want to call it midterms, but here's like your first big exam. And then you're going to get into midterms, and you get into finals. This is where you kind of say, okay, it was really fun beating up on some cupcakes. What do we do now? Like, especially for an Auburn team. Then, hey, went on the road. I saw some comments. It was Cal. Cal's terrible. You had to fly cross country. You would much rather, and y'all correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think I am. You would much rather learn things and win than learn things and lose. Like that is hands down. Auburn gets to leave with a win, in my opinion. They get to kind of learn what they're doing. It'd be much worse. It
depends on what you learn. Oh, it'd been detrimental if they lost, but it depends on what you learn, because sometimes a win, you kind of look back, hindsight 2020, you still kind of look over some of those deficiencies and you say, well, we still won the game, and you just kind of forget about it and move on.
Yeah,
it's all depends on your reaction.
No doubt. No doubt. Hey, thank you so much for tuning in here on a Wednesday night. We had a little bit longer show, but a loaded week 4 slate that we're excited to watch. And like we mentioned, I mean, it is from the time you turn your TV on to watch College Game Day, there's going to be a primetime game up until you go to sleep that night. Not, I guess we could say quite, I just hope there's no 2 a.m. game like that. I hope that there's no game going on at 2 a.m. that I got to watch and just absolutely about to die on the couch. But that being said,
I mean, Hawaii does play New Mexico State at 12 o'clock.
Spoken like a true degenerate. So we'll continue, and we'll talk about that. But hey, this is Crowded Booth with Bryce Koon, Will Manis, Ralph Leary. Appreciate you so much for tuning in. If you're listening on the radio, we appreciate that. We're all across East Alabama, West Georgia, not East Georgia and West Alabama. That wouldn't even make logistical sense for them to be doing that. That being said, YouTube, make sure you hit the like button, subscribe. We're going to have some content coming out. It sounds like Will is going to be having a full-scale preview, Texas A&M against Auburn. We're going to be talking about that, or I should say Auburn against Texas A&M from an Auburn perspective.
If I can talk, I got to pay a visit to the dentist in the morning, so I may not be able to talk.
Oh, yeah. 7-year-old Will has cavities. Make sure to throw up some prayers for him. Also, tomorrow night for the Georgia Tech fans, full-scale preview. We're going to dive into this Wake Forest game, and I'm going to say right now, I'm going to tell you why I think Georgia Tech wins this game. I'm going to tell you why I think they go on the road, they beat Wake Forest. I think they can do it. Yeah, that's what I'm going to say. Ralph over there, he doesn't believe it, but that's okay. His Troy Trojans going down to the Hilltoppers this weekend. We'll talk about it and more. College football, appreciate you so much for tuning in. This has been another episode of The Crowded Booth.
Pile in here and make yourself feel at home. The Crowded Booth is coming on. The Crowded Booth with Bryce Koon.